Hello everyone, let's discuss today's The Hindu Editorial Analysis. The first article is Tax Contribution by States Needs to be Revisited. In this article, the writer says that the Finance Commission's main task is to recommend a distribution formula that specifies each state's share in the part of union tax revenue assigned to states. These distribution formulas have a few weighted determinants, with some states arguing that their contributions to union tax revenue have been higher than others, and therefore they rightfully have higher shares in the union tax revenue. In the first 8 finance commissions, tax contribution with very little weight was a determinant in the distribution formula. Since the 10th commission, this tax contribution was dropped from the distribution formula. The Goods and Services Tax (GST) regime creates an opportunity for its inclusion in the distribution formula. Two important tasks of the Finance Commissions are to recommend the proportion of union tax revenues to be assigned to states and to recommend the share of each state in the assigned tax revenue. From 2000 onwards, the 10th Commission restricted the state's share only to personal income tax and union excise duties, and after that, all central tax revenues were pooled and states' shares were decided. The second task involves designing a distribution formula to arrive at a share for each state, based on the principles of equity and efficiency. Equity stipulates that revenue-scarce states and states with higher expenditures get larger shares of union tax revenue than other states. Efficiency is to reward states that are efficient in collecting revenue and rationalizing spending. The trade-off between equity and efficiency is normative and remains dynamic in successive Finance Commission recommendations. States from which large volumes of income tax revenue have been collected argue to consider and assign a higher weight to tax collection as an indicator of tax contribution. The origin of income is essential to estimate states' contributions to income tax revenue, which is difficult to identify, as a person may pay income tax from one state while the income earning is from other states. Successful finance commissions have assigned 10% to 20% weight to income tax revenue collection assessment in the distribution formula for income tax revenue because collection is not a good indicator of contribution. In the case of union excise duties, the value of taxable products consumed in a state is essential to decide its contribution. Due to the unavailability of proper consumption statistics, contribution was never a determinant in the distribution formula for union excise duties. Tax contribution is an efficiency indicator because a state's level of development and economic structure decides its tax contribution. However, finance commissions had assigned only 10% to 20% weight to this efficiency indicator. Population, a chief indicator of the expenditure needs of the state, was given 80% to 90% weight in the first 7 finance commissions. In the case of distributing revenue from union excise duties, the entire distribution was based on population or other indicators of expenditure needs, such as area, per capita income, proportion of scheduled cave, scheduled tribe population, and some indicators of social and physical infrastructure needs. The next article is The Idea of One Nation. One election is against federalism. In this article, the writer says that in September 2023, the Union government established a high-level committee on One Nation, One Election under former President Ramnath Kovind. The committee has met 3 times and sought the views of various national and state political parties on the subject of a common elections schedule. The timing of this exercise coincides with the lead-up to the general elections in 2024, raising doubts about its feasibility. There are compelling reasons to believe that the high-level committee is likely to return a recommendation in favor of a common election, comprising elections to the Lok Sabha and State Legislative Assembly. This is why all the attention in the aftermath would focus entirely on the Supreme Court of India, which would be India's sentinel on the survive. The Indian Supreme Court, which has self-characterized its constitutional role as the sentinel on the survive, would be called upon to determine the ultimate fate of Indian democracy. One of the reasons assigned in support of one nation, one election is the high amount of expenditure towards the conduct of elections. It is reported that the 2014 general elections cost the public exchequer an estimated Rs 870 crore. Proponents argue that common elections for the Union Parliament and State Assembly would reduce expenditure significantly. Another reason put forth by proponents of a common election is that the Model Code of Conduct comes into effect twice in a 5-year cycle, which affects the seamless conduct of government business and results in governance downtime. Opponents of the common elections contend that these reasons are logically and factually untenable. The cost of holding free and fair elections to elect a government of the choice of the people is a price that can never be high. There are occasions where a government may not complete a full term of 5 years, and elections may be held again. Such occurrences are expressions of the democratic system and should be accepted. In S.R. Bommai v. Union of India, 1994, the Supreme Court declared that the states have an independent constitutional existence, and they have as important a role to play in the political, social, educational, and cultural life of the people as the Union. The Constitution provides for a specific tenure for the Chief Justice of India, and the Supreme Court has been involved in several cases related to the issue of election timing. The next article is spiking tensions. Dialing down aggressive rhetoric is crucial for peace in Korean Peninsula. In this article, the writer says that Kim Jong-un's decision to declare South Korea an enemy state of the North and abandon peaceful negotiations signals Pyongyang adopting a more aggressive stand. Recent months have seen increased war rhetoric from Kim and a series of weapons tests by the North. Pyongyang claimed to have fired a medium-range hypersonic missile and tested underwater, unmanned, nuclear-capable drones. The North also fired hundreds of artillery shells near the South's islands of Yeonpyeong and Baekneong, closer to the northern limit line, a disputed in-Korean maritime border. Mr. Kim's actions were not entirely unprovoked, as he sees the growing military convergence between South Korea, Japan, and the US as a security threat. The three countries recently linked up their missile radar data with one another, and the US and South Korea routinely conduct joint military exercises, which triggers sharp reactions from the North. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol maintains a hawkish stand towards Pyongyang, saying that peace can only be achieved through strength. North Korea was open to diplomatic engagement with the South and the US in the past, but after the collapse of the agreement framework during the George Bush Jr. administration, tensions spiked again. Pyongyang has ruled out talks on denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and has taken measures to strengthen ties with China and Russia. Dialing down tensions and rebuilding confidence in international relations should be a priority for all stakeholders, including Seoul, Pyongyang, and Washington.